Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
You know that weird feeling when you're talking about something, maybe needing new running shoes, and then boom, an ad pops up on your phone?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is it listening?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And, well, that's kind of what we're digging into today.
we are. There's this big settlement, $95 million between Apple and users. The claim was basically that Siri was recording private conversations without people knowing.
95 million. Wow. Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive.
Hmm.
Let's unpack this. What was really behind the lawsuit? What does it mean for, our privacy? And maybe, just maybe, could you get some money out of this?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through the legal papers, the news reports, trying to get you the real story.
Yeah, we looked at the lawsuit itself, the settlement details, really trying to understand the core arguments and what it means for you, the user.
Okay, so let's start with that main claim. The lawsuit, Lopez v. Apple.
Hmm.
It argued Apple was basically, well, eavesdropping.
Essentially, yes. The argument was that Siri could activate accidentally, and then it would record private conversations that were happening nearby without any explicit consent.
And how easily could that happen? The accidental activation, I mean?
Well, the lawsuit pointed out it could be pretty easy. Saying something that sounds a bit like Siri, maybe, or even just like bumping your phone the wrong way and hitting a button.
Right.
And the big concern was these recordings could capture really sensitive stuff. Private chats, family discussions, things you definitely wouldn't expect your phone to be recording.
Yeah, that definitely makes you uneasy. And didn't the lawsuit also mention those stories people tell?
Hmm.
Seeing ads for things they only talked about.
It did touch on that suspicion that maybe this accidental recording wasn't just sitting there, that maybe it was being used somehow. It adds to that feeling of unease.
It really does.
And the legal language was pretty strong. It accused Apple of unlawful and intentional interception and recording. Think about that feeling of violation, in your own home, having a private talk and worrying your device is listening in.
Definitely. And there was a specific quote in the lawsuit about whether people would have even bought the devices if they'd known, wasn't there?
Yes, exactly. It said, let me find it. Plaintiffs and class members would not have bought their Siri devices or would have paid less for them if they had known Apple was intercepting, recording, disclosing, and otherwise misusing their conversations without consent or authorization.
Wow. That really highlights the trust issue, doesn't it? The expectation of privacy.
Absolutely. It gets to the core of what users expect when they buy these things.
So moving on from the recording itself, what about where that data might have gone? Was there concern about it being shared?
There was. The lawsuit alleged that these recorded conversations might have been shared with third parties.
Like advertisers?
Potentially, yes, that was part of the claim. And they actually referenced something specific, didn't they? Yeah, a 2019 article from The Guardian. It reported that third-party contractors, people not directly employed by Apple but working for them, were listening to Siri recordings. Apparently, they were doing this to, improve Siri's performance.
Okay.
But the report said these contractors were overhearing really confidential stuff. Medical details, private deals, all sorts of things.
So even if not sold directly to advertisers, the recordings were being heard by other people outside Apple.
That's what the report suggested and what the lawsuit highlighted. It raises serious questions about who had access.
And Apple did respond around that time, didn't they, back in 2019?
They did. Apple put out a statement. They acknowledged they hadn't been fully living up to their own high ideals regarding Siri privacy, and they promised changes, improvements to how they handled things.
Interesting. So not a direct admission related to the lawsuit's specific claims, but an acknowledgement of issues around Siri's privacy practices back then.
Precisely. It adds context, even though in this lawsuit itself, Apple's stance is different.
Right. So let's talk about their official response to this specific lawsuit, the Lopez case.
Okay. Well, crucially, Apple denies all the allegations. They deny any wrongdoing. Full stop.
They maintain they didn't do anything improper or illegal.
Correct. That's their firm position in the legal filings.
So why settle then? If they deny everything, why agree to pay out $95 million?
Well, settling doesn't necessarily mean admitting fault. Companies often do it to avoid a long, expensive trial.
Oh, yeah.
Litigation can drag on for years. cost a fortune in legal fees, and, the outcome is never guaranteed. Plus, there's the potential PR headache.
So it can just be a business decision to make it go away.
Often, yes, a pragmatic choice to resolve the claims and move on, even while maintaining their innocence.
All right, let's get to the practical stuff. The $95 million settlement. Who might actually be eligible to get a piece of this?
Okay, so eligibility is fairly broad, but has a key condition. It's for individuals in the U.S. or its territories who owned or bought a Siri device between September 17th, 2014 and December 31st, 2024. So a long window.
10 years, basically.
Right. But UT, and this is important, you must also have experienced Siri activating unintentionally during a conversation you considered private or confidential.
Okay, so not just owning the device, but having that specific experience of an accidental activation during a private moment. What counts as private?
It's generally understood as any conversation a reasonable person would expect to be private. Think talking to your spouse at home, discussing personal finances, health issues, that kind of thing.
Got it. And which devices count?
It's a pretty long list. Basically, most things with Siri from that period: iPhones, iPads, Apple Watches.
MacBooks, too.
Yep, MacBooks, iMacs, Apple TV boxes, HomePods, even the iPod Touch if it had Siri.
Okay, so quite a few possibilities there. If you think, hey, that might be me, what do? How do you file a claim?
The main way is online. There's an official settlement website. If you search for something like Lopez Voice Assistant Settlement or Lopez Siri Settlement, you should find it.
Lopez, L-O-P-E-Z.
Correct. That website will have the claim form and all the details.
And is there a deadline? There always is with these things.
Absolutely. A crucial one. The deadline to submit a claim is July 2, 2025.
July 2nd, 2025.
Okay. And that's also the deadline if, for some reason, you wanted to opt out of the settlement and retain your right to sue individually, though that's less common.
Good to know. Now, the big question. How much cash are we talking about per person?
Well, the settlement documents mention a cap. It's set at $20 per eligible device.
Per device.
Right. And there's also a maximum payout per person capped at $100. So you could claim for up to 5 devices, potentially.
Okay, so up to $100 max, but is that guaranteed?
No, definitely not guaranteed. That's the maximum. The actual amount could be less.
Well,
It really depends on how many people file valid claims. If tons of people file, that $95 million fund gets divided amongst more people, so each share might be smaller than the $20 cap.
right, the total pot gets split. So manage expectations, it might be a small amount.
Exactly. More symbolic, perhaps.
And when would people actually get this money, assuming it all goes through?
There's a court hearing scheduled tentatively for August 1st, 2025. That's when the judge gives the final okay, hopefully.
Yeah.
But even after approval, payments won't go out immediately. There's processing time and also the possibility of appeals, which could delay things further.
So patience is required.
Definitely. It could be several months after that August date, potentially longer.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Why should you listening right now care about this settlement, especially if the payout might be small?
Well, I think it's less about the individual dollar amount and more about what it represents. This settlement, even with Apple denying wrongdoing, puts a spotlight on these really significant privacy concerns with voice assistants.
Yeah.
The whole idea that our devices might be recording us unintentionally and that data potentially being accessed by others, that's a big deal.
It really is.
Sure.
And the time frame here, 2014 to the end of 2024, that's a decade. It makes you wonder how often it might have happened without anyone noticing.
Exactly. It prompts that question. Have you ever had Siri pop up randomly during a private chat in the last 10 years? It makes you reflect on your own experiences. And this isn't just about Apple, really. It raises broader questions about all voice assistant tech. Are the privacy controls strong enough? Are companies transparent enough about how this data is used?
Does that maybe push other companies to tighten things up?
It could. Settlements like this can certainly encourage the industry to be more cautious, perhaps more proactive about privacy features and disclosures. It also highlights potential gaps in regulation.
So wrapping this up, the main takeaway isn't really the $20 per device, is it?
Not primarily, no. It's that this $95 million settlement, regardless of fault, underlines those persistent worries we have about privacy in the age of Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, all of them.
Right. It's a tangible result linked to those concerns.
Absolutely. So if you think you fit the eligibility criteria, owning an applicable device in that 2014 to 2024 window, and recalling an accidental Siri activation during a private moment, definitely check out the Lopez Voice Assistant Settlement website.
Get the details, decide if you want to file.
Yeah, and just remember that deadline, July 2, 2025.
Okay, so as we finish this deep dive, it leaves us with a lingering thought really for you to consider. In this world where we're talking to our devices more and more, how do we make sure these digital assistants are truly just assistants
Mm-hmm.
and not, quietly listening in when we least expect it? It's something we're thinking about as this tech gets even more woven into our lives.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.